This is Werner Fassbinder. He was an endlessly fascinating and controversial filmmaker working in the 70s and 80s in Germany. I think that his work is something that filmmakers should familiarize themselves with, both for things that I think are admirable and interesting, but also as a masterclass in what filmmakers should not do. There is a lot that you can say about Fassbinder, but one thing you cannot say is that he wasn't prolific. In his short life, he died when he was only 37. He produced over 40 feature films and 24 plays. His films range in tone from bleak to farcical to political to campy. They're all over the map, but at the same time, they also have a distinct and unique thread running throughout them that's instantly recognizable. Of his body of work, Fassbinder said, "I would like to build a house with my films. Some are the cellars, others the walls, still others the windows, but I hope in the end it will be a house." The thing that makes his films distinctive to me is that they're all deeply personal and confessional, which often makes them bold and very shocking. Nothing seemed to be off limits for Fassbinder, and it seems like the more provocative, the better. He was impulsive and impatient, and his films have a frenetic shabbiness as a result. His work is hypersexual, cynical, and cruel, and he often blurred the lines between work and life, carrying on tumultuous affairs with many collaborators, both men and women. Sexual, cynical, and cruel are also ways that you could describe the man himself. By all accounts, Fassbinder the man was terribly vicious and abusive and unpredictable, both to partners and to collaborators. I think a lot of people who admire his work would like to gloss over this aspect or minimize it, but it seems like one of the defining characteristics of not only him as a man, but as an artist as well. There is a cruel edge to a lot of his films, which is undeniably part of their power, but which becomes deeply unsettling when you read accounts of his behavior towards those near him. So what do I think we can take from the life and career of this maniac? One of the things that fascinates me the most is that Fassbinder worked fast. He got productions off the ground, shot them quickly, and got them out the door while already starting on the next one. He was once offered an incredibly lucrative 5-year contract by a producer, with one of the stipulations being that he wouldn't make more than one film a year, and he turned it down, citing the fact that he would get bored. I'm really fascinated by people who work this way, and I have to admire when artists are able to focus on pure expression without being overly sentimental or calculated or precious about it. I feel like it's easy to get paralyzed as an artist and to stall out while trying to make the next thing, but Fassbinder just plunged headlong into everything. If it wasn't perfect, it was okay, because he was already on to the next one before he even had a chance to develop regrets. If a costume or prop turned out badly, he would go ahead either with it or without it, but he would not wait for a replacement. Working with the same cameramen, assistants, designers, and technicians, he would delegate as many decisions as possible, without even making himself available for consultation. When he arrived on the first day of shooting, everything had to be ready. Often, when he came to shoot on a location, he was seeing it for the first time. Now, I don't know if this is the best way for a director to operate, but it's certainly interesting, and it lends his films a kind of chaotic, sort of dangerous tension. I also really admire the starkly confessional nature of his films. For better or worse, he put himself all on the line. He seemed to have zero compunction about airing the darkest aspects of himself in his films. And I think that filmmakers should strive to be even a fraction as candid in their own work. Really interesting, compelling work comes when an artist is brave enough to infuse their projects with their fears, their experiences, and their opinions. You can see Fassbinder in all of his own movies, even though sometimes you would maybe rather not. His films are provocative. I can't imagine having a tepid response to most of his movies. A lot of people love them, and an equal number of people think they're too slow, or offensive, or just really bizarre. If you can make something that can polarize people that much, I have to feel like you're doing something right. I don't love everything about him though. People seem to constantly want to separate the art from the artist, and I just personally think that you can't do that, especially when the problematic aspects of a person so often directly involve the production of the work or the people involved. You literally cannot separate his work from his behavior. The legendary cinematographer and Fassbinder collaborator Michael Ballhaus said, "Working with Fassbinder was hard, both mentally and physically. He used to emotionally abuse me and also my wife, who was an art director on a few of his movies. I never understood his behavior, but I learned so much from him. I, for one, don't buy into the myth of the wild artist who does whatever they want and justifies their awful behavior with their incredible body of work. Fassbinder was a maniac who mistreated almost everyone around him, alienating himself and driving people away. He also flamed out before turning 40. If he had treated people better and been more responsible, he might still be around making interesting work like his contemporaries, Werner Herzog and Wim Wenders, who are still leading successful, fascinating, and fruitful careers. Maybe if he was different, he wouldn't have made the films that he made, which I think a lot of people would say would be regrettable. But I have a hard time romanticizing any of these abusive and self-destructive artists that people often like to put on a pedestal. The human cost of creating a piece of art isn't worth it. After all, we're not curing cancer here, we're making movies. I really like much of his output, but would the world be worse off without Fassbinder's films if it meant that all those people in his vicinity wouldn't have suffered as a result? Or could he have made the same level of work without being an abrasive piece of shit? I don't have answers to these questions, but if you need to torture others, consume ungodly amounts of drugs, and die prematurely in order to create your art, then what does that say about you as an artist? I remember a friend of mine who got sober saying that they used to think they had to be wild and out of control and drunk in order to nurture their artistic creativity. But then they eventually realized that was a cop-out, and it was in fact preferable to create art as a normal, sober human and respectful member of society. I guess it's not sexy to push that notion, but to me it just feels immature to still hold up the wild, destructive artist as some sort of romantic ideal. To me, having a long, healthy, collaborative, and organically evolving career is what's cool. I would be curious to hear what you think of Fassbinder. Let me know down in the comments what your experience with his films have been, good or bad. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this about movies and filmmaking, make sure that you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.